Hi everybody. In today's 10-minute video, I'm going to give you a brief tour of Blazor Gallery, and then the remaining 7 minutes I'm going to show you how to create your own project. If you want to follow along, what you're going to need is Visual Studio 2022 and SQL Server or SQL Server Express is what I'm using because it's free. So first, the brief tour. Few features I've added recently is you can now view a larger image of any image, and I've shown this before possibly, but you can also copy folders. So this is my dog if I want to copy a folder, and let's say I'll use Chrome just so I'm not logged in, and I'll paste this, and the person viewing your gallery can also change folders and they can copy folders. They can look at larger images. They just can't make any changes because they're in view only mode. I'm closing down Chrome. Go back to Edge. Okay, now you can also add a new folder. So if you just want to add a new folder, I'll call this something like Party. And you can upload some images. So I'll just go to my graphics folder and pick something. Oh, that's fine. Okay, so that's the end of the brief tour of Blazor Gallery. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you your choices if you want to follow along. You can either clone the project. This is my GitHub repo, and I'll put this link in the video description. But you can either clone Blazor Gallery right there and use Visual Studio 2022 and create your project, or you can create a new Git package, which is what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to copy this to my clipboard, and now I am going to close down my browser, and I'm going to show you my temp folder is empty, nothing up my sleeve. Let me just change folders and go back. Okay, temp is empty, and now what we're going to do is I'll close Visual Studio down, and I will show you briefly before we start. I already have a Blazor Gallery, so when you hear me say Blazor Gallery 2, just know it means Blazor Gallery for you. That's the only other thing I'm going to show. And if you want to follow along, there is an app called Connection String Builder that is part of DataJuggler.net, which is the project I've worked on for almost 20 years. And here is DataJuggler.net. You can either clone this, and in the Tools folder, Connection String Builder is available, or if you install the latest version, you will get a shortcut on your desktop for Connection String Builder, and that's what I'm going to be using. So I'm just showing you that in case you want to follow along. So now we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm opening up Visual Studio. Let me start my timer. Hang on. Don't want to do any tomfoolery here. Alright, timer is started. 7 minutes on the clock. Alright, so I'm going to open Visual Studio, continue without code, Tools, NuGet Package Manager Console. I'm going to just change directory to my temp folder. And next, I'm going to paste in what's on my clipboard. You don't actually even have to have the version. You can just paste that in the latest version. Now I already had it, but you should see something similar to that. And I'm going to paste this again. But this time I'm going to take out the word install and the version. And that will create the project in the directory that you're located in, which is in the temp folder. Now we're going to create a SQL Server database. New database. This will be Blazor Gallery 2 for me. It's Blazor Gallery for you. Okay, now we need to execute 2 SQL scripts. So if you go to your temp folder that we just cloned the project, there's a SQL folder. Click on Blazor Gallery database.sql and hit execute. Make sure you have the right database selected. And we're going to execute one more. And this will be the insert admin. Now you're going to see this little squiggly line here, probably, maybe not. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and execute that. Alright, so we have our admin database set up. Alright, so our admin table set up. So now what we're going to do is set up 3 environment variables. Okay, so the first is we're going to build our connection string. So I'm going to type in my server name. Database name is Blazor Gallery 2 for me. Windows authentication, test and copy. Hang on, I probably have a spelling error is my guess. Yep, no, that is not a spelling error. Hang on, what went wrong? Oh, I do have a spelling error. Computers are so picky. Okay, sorry, that was an oops moment, but it's getting late and I'm getting tired. Okay, so now we have our environment, our connection string. We're going to set up 3 environment variables. So now I already have all of these, but for all of these, when I double click, just pretend you're clicking new. That's what you're going to be doing. So the first one is Blazor Gallery connection string, but connection string is kind of abbreviated there. And I'm going to paste in my connection string so it's got the Blazor Gallery 2 and hit OK. The next, you would hit new and type in Blazor Gallery key code and just make up a string. Any string you want. This string is just going to be used when you create password hashes. Okay? And then finally, Blazor Gallery URL. Now for the live, if you have your own domain, you can type in your domain, or you can just use localhost 44330 is what I'm using. All right, sip of water time. Okay, so now we're going to close our we'll close the environment variable editor. And now, if I close down Visual Studio, I'm going to open the project that we just cloned. So let me go to my temp folder, and I will open Blazor Gallery Solution. And since I already had all these are all going to work, or they should work. So usually the famous last words, but if you've followed along, this all should work. So now, give this a second. Okay, now I did this, I forgot again. I do this every time. Let me close this. The part that I always forget is I want this to be IIS Express, but you can leave the console if you prefer. Okay, so now I'm going to join, because this is a new database, so I'm going to just type in a username. This is not my real email, but we'll go with it. And I'll just make up a simple password. Got to be able to type. Just to show you, if I try this, the passwords do not match, but I'm taking off the last one. Okay, so now I need to sign in. Okay, now this terms of service is for the live site. This is just saying don't put porn on my server. And then finally it's saying, do you want to make your profile public? Which this is a future feature, but you can just say yes. So we created our project in 7 minutes, but in case you're a skeptic and you want to see an upload, I will just pick some image. That's a good little image there. Okay, and now from here, I can view in full screen mode. I could copy this, and if I'll just show you in, I'll open Chrome again, I can do that. Uh-oh, my timer quit working. I hate that when that happens, but I did it. You have to admit, you saw it, you were watching. My timer, I gotta fix my timer. It's crashed on me a few times. But I'll show you in Chrome that this works. Okay, so that is, and notice that's the local host version, not the live version. Alright, and I'll show you one more thing before we go. Like if I want to add a new folder, I'll just call it a new folder, and I'll call this, I'll just call it My Samples or something. You just hit enter, and it's created for you, and I'll upload some samples. I'll say something like, yeah, that's fine. It's not that's a stock photo actually, but oops, I just went somewhere I wasn't supposed to go. Sorry about that noise too, by the way. But if I try to upload some really large image, this ought to work. But I've got some images that are over 20 meg that won't upload. And it isn't a flex grid, so I know I went over my 7 minutes, but we did make it. So that's why I went from 5 to 7, because 5's just not enough time. But so that's my brief tour of Blazor Image Gallery. What do you think? Is it worth at least 1 star? Because it's kind of frustrating. You would think if you see a project with no stars, you think, well, it's not a good project, but actually it's just selling open source code is more difficult than anybody ever talks about. Oh, by the way, I did want to show you one more feature. If you want to double click, if you want to rename a folder, just double click and I can just change that to samples. I can spell, and or if you're ever here and you don't want to rename it, you just hit escape. So that's all built into this component is part of DataJuggler.BlazorGallery, and it's also free, and it's probably also worth a star, but that's another video. Alright, well, thanks for watching, and hope you have a great whatever time of it is in your world. Peace out.